complete, the next thing we need to do is program the controller boards. So you want to have one of your halves connected to your PC with a USB cable, and then we need to download or compile and download the firmware. So on the GitHub page, there's a link there going to the QMK website for the QMK configurator. Up here, just go ahead and type in split89, and it's the only split89 hand wired there. You're going to click that, and you should recognize this key switch layout. Up here in the upper right hand corner, go ahead and click compile, and it's going to go ahead and compile that firmware. The different color layouts here is just cosmetic. There's a drop down here if you want to try different color schemes just to see what the layout looks like with these keycaps, and you can customize that too. There's a ton of stuff you can do on this page, including customizing what keys do what. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to use QMK on my keyboard instead of just a static firmware file. So you, the user, if you want to customize it any further than it already is, you can do so at your heart's content. Once this firmware is done compiling, this button right here is going to turn green, and you can download that file. There you go, it's done. And if you wish, you can scroll up here and see what's going on. But go ahead and click firmware and download it to your PC. If you haven't installed QMK Toolbox, you want to click here. When you do install QMK Toolbox, it's going to ask if you want to install some drivers. Go ahead and install those. I'm going to go ahead and start up QMK here. And one thing I noticed is I get this error. This is with the recent update. I don't know what it is, but for the most part, it's cosmetic. It doesn't affect how QMK works for me. So I just click continue, and I go about my way. This is the firmware I downloaded previously, but it's the same thing you would do when you click the firmware button here, download it locally. So open QMK Toolbox. As part of the install, it's going to want to install some drivers. Make sure you let it install those drivers. And over here, it should say ATmega 32U4 for the Pro Micros that we used. And then you want to go ahead and click open and navigate to your hex file there. At this point, on your keyboard that you have the USB connected to, go ahead and double click the reset button that you have on the back there. I'm going to do mine here just about a second apart, no longer. And you're going to see this yellow message that is connected. Go ahead and hit flash, and it's going to start flashing that side of your keyboard. Once it's complete, it'll show up a message down here that is disconnected. So flash verified, and it's disconnected. That side of your keyboard is now programmed and ready for use. You want to disconnect that cable and move it over to the other half, and then hit that reset button twice, hit flash again, and once it's done, you're ready to start typing. You should have that TRS cable plugged in to connect the two halves, and then your USB cable can be plugged into either half. To verify it, now this is kind of the moment of truth. Go back to this configurator page, and there's a test keyboard input. Go ahead and start pressing keys. You'll see them register on the screen. If one of those key switches does not register, the two things that I've had issues with was, one, my solder joint was not soldered. The wire was routed past a pin, but it wasn't soldered to it. So I just had to put a little bit of solder on there, and I was good to go. The other issue that I had is a reverse diode. We talked about that during the assembly part of this video. So it probably pretty easy to spot in there that it's got that black stripe on the wrong side. The anode is on the wrong, or the cathode's on the wrong side. So you just have to reverse the diode, and you should be good to go. Going through all the different key presses here. The one thing you'll notice is there's no function key here, but it's physically on your keyboard. If I press the up arrow, right now it's just showing arrow up. If I hold function, it's audio up. And what this is doing is it's shifting to the lower layer here. Right here we see MO1, which is momentary. So as long as you're holding that down, it's going to shift to layer 1. And layer 1 has just these functions: volume up, down, previous track, next track, and play. I release it, and I'm going to end up going back to this layer. I'm just clicking this actually with my mouse. I'm not shifting it with the key. But just to show you, there's a lot of, you scroll down here, there's a lot of different functions that you can add to your keyboard. With this firmware. I wanted my keyboard to run QMK. It was a step beyond where I started. Instead of making a static firmware that just ran all the keys generically, I wanted to have the functionality to do things like a second layer. And you, the user, you can come here, customize it, make your own firmware, compile it, download it, install it on your keyboard, and adjust it and customize it how you wish. Alright, so if you made it this far, you have a pretty good idea what the build process looks like, the customizable options between the materials and hardware that you select, as well as the QMK software. If you do decide to build this, I would love to see a picture of this. If you could post a make over on the Prusa website, that would be all I would ask and request of you. It's been great to put the documentation together for this build to encourage others, maybe if they're looking for a split keyboard to build it. And I'd love to see your results if you decide to build this. Alright, well, thanks for watching and have a good one.